So talking today about how to find the inverse of a rational function. When we did this before, we interchanged the x and the y. So we made the f of x value y, and then we just rewrote it so that our y was our x and our x was our y. After that, we just solved again for y. So what we're going to do is we're going to just cover up the y stuff and move what we need to move. We're going to move the -1 over first because it was a +1 over here. We do the opposite to move it. So on this side we have x minus 1, and on this side we have the cube root of y minus 3. Okay? And again, if you use that cover it up method that it's directly attached to, what's the next thing you have to get rid of? Yeah, how do you get rid of a cube? I should say, how do you get rid of a cubed root? You cube it, right? So we're going to cube both sides. Now we definitely do not want to take the time to multiply that out, because that would be x minus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. That would be a lot of work to do. So we're just going to rewrite it as x minus 1 cubed. Over here it cancels to be just y minus 3. And then in order to just get y by itself, if we cover up that y, what do we have to do with the 3? Yeah, add it to the other side. So we're going to add it to the other side, and just it kind of gets thrown back behind because it doesn't combine with that stuff. And then does anybody remember the very last step that we had when we did these before? Yeah, make the y back to an f of x, right? But it's the inverse of f of x, so we just rewrote it like that. You can rewrite that in front if you want, so that it's this part's over in front. If you leave it behind, though, it's not going to be wrong. So this would be our solution for solving for the inverse. And again, we've done that before. So now we're just going to do it with rational expressions, meaning fractions, okay? I'm going to give you a couple of hints to do that, and I hope that the hints will make it a little bit easier for you as far as the algebra goes, okay? So again, the f of x is my y value. I'm going to interchange my x and my y. So instead of y equals this, I'm going to have x equals this. And that becomes y plus 2 on the bottom. Does everybody agree with me just interchanging? Okay, now this is my suggestion to you. Now I heard lots of people tell me that when I want to just get rid of this, I'm just going to multiply both sides by the bottom of the fraction, which is okay. I want you to think about it as cross multiplying. So I want you to put that 1 underneath the x so that you can cross multiply and not have any funky math going on there, okay? So when we cross multiply, we do top times bottom. Now when I write top times bottom, I'm literally going to do that, top times bottom. Because unless I have to multiply this through, I don't want to multiply that through. Okay, I'm going to tell you when you have to do it though, and we'll have to do it in a couple more problems. But right now we don't have to, so we're not going to multiply it through. So top times bottom equals bottom times top. So what do I have the other direction? 1. Everybody remembers how to cross multiply, right? That's what we do. Top times bottom equals bottom times top. Now we're still solving for y, so cover up your y and see what you got to move. You need to move the x, right? How do you get rid of the x? X is multiplied by y plus 2, so you divide it to the other side. Okay? It cancels over here to be y plus 2, and on the other side I get 1 over x. Doesn't it make sense that if I'm finding the inverse of a fraction that more than likely I should end up with some kind of fraction? Yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? Alright, last step to solve for y. What do I have to do? Subtract the 2. When I subtract the 2, it's really like throwing it back behind, you guys. It doesn't really get to combine with it. It just gets thrown back behind. Okay, so my answer is y equals 1 over x minus 2. My very last step before I can be done is to change that y back to the f of x value, right? Or if it's a g of x or k of x value, you've got to change it back to that. So this would be the inverse function of x equals 1 over x minus 2. What do you think? That wasn't too bad, was it? Interchange, cross multiply, solve for y, change back your y to f of x. Okay? So, same thing here, but it's not ready for me to cross multiply yet. So let's first of all interchange our x and our y. So we have y equals this. We're going to make it x equals this. So we'll have 2 over y minus 7 plus 3. This is not ready to cross multiply because of this funky 3 out behind. So I'm going to take this 3 right here and I'm going to subtract it to the other side, because then if it's subtracted to the other side, I can cross multiply. Alright, so subtract that 3 over. And on this side you get x minus 3. And on this side you have 2 over y minus 7. Okay? Doesn't that look a little bit better, like it's ready to cross multiply? So right here, put your 1 underneath there and cross multiply. Now, do you remember when I said when we cross multiply, let's leave them separate unless we have to multiply through? This is still not the kind that we're going to have to multiply through. Again, I will tell you when that happens. But I'm just going to do top times bottom equals bottom times top. Is everybody following me with how I got that? Alright, my goal is to get the y by itself. So how do I get rid of an x minus 3 that's multiplied by y minus 7? I do. I divide by x minus 3. It cancels on this side. I don't know why I just made that a... And what's my last step to get this y by itself? Add the 7 to the other side. Again, it doesn't really combine together. I'm going to come up here and write. I get y equals 2 over x minus 3 plus 7. And then I still just change my y back to that inverse function of x. So again, all I did, interchange x and y, get it ready to cross multiply, resolve for y. Okay, you following me on the steps here? All right, do you remember how I kept saying to you, don't multiply this out unless you need to do that? This next one is a need to do it problem. So let's see when we set this up if you can tell me the difference between this problem and the other problems that we've done. So this is a y equals x plus 3 over x minus 4. When I interchange it, I get x equals y plus 3 over y minus 4. What makes this problem different than the other two we just did? Somebody say that louder. There's 2 y's. Big major difference there is that there's 2 y's. When there's 2 y's there, when we cross multiply, we're going to multiply through instead of just rewriting it, okay? This is a big difference with these. So I'm going to put my 1 underneath here and I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to do the top times the bottom and equal it to the bottom times the top. Now this is exactly the way we wrote it last time, right? Bottom times top, top times bottom. But this time I want you to multiply this through. Now I could let you play with this for a little bit and see if you could solve it for yourselves. Like somebody said, well, why can't I just divide by the x? And I'm like, okay, divide by the x. But that doesn't do you any good, because what are you supposed to be doing? You're supposed to be getting the y's by themselves. If you divide by the x, does it get you your y's by yourself? No. Do you see how you're kind of just going to go back and forth with it, because it doesn't actually work that same way? So what we're really going to do when we have 2 y's is we're going to multiply this through. When I do that, I get xy minus 4x, and on the other side, y plus 3. Now does it look a little bit easier to get all your y's by themselves on one side of the equation? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to first minus this 3 over to the other side, because it needs to be on the other side. I'd have x times y minus 4x minus 3 equals y. Are my y's all by themselves? No, because I got this y right here that needs to make it to the other side, right? So what am I going to do to that xy to get it to the other side? It's added, connected by addition and subtraction. So how do you get rid of a positive? XY, you subtract it over, right? So when I do that, it cancels over here, and I have a negative 4x minus 3 equals y minus xy. Does anybody have an idea on how I could get this y out of here and this y out of here at the same time? Ooh, that's not going to work, but good thinking. Do you remember the one thing that I say to you, that it will never, ever, ever go away? Yeah. Can you see a greatest common factor here? Yeah. Can we take out the y? If we take out a y, what are we left with? 1 minus x. Did you see how that worked? So I just factored out my greatest common factor of a y. Over here, I'm still left with the negative 4x minus 3. Okay? I'm going to come and rewrite this up here so I have some space to work. Okay? I have a negative 4x minus 3 equals y times 1 minus x. How do I get y by itself? Divide by what? 1 minus x. If I divide by 1 minus x, I completely have y by itself. And I'm done. Okay? So somebody tell me what made that problem different than the other one?
We had to factor.
Why did we have to factor though? There was 2 y's. So, do you remember how I said do not multiply through unless something special happens? When did I just tell you you have to multiply through when you cross multiply? When you have 2 y's. Okay? So we're going to try this again. Again, don't forget to change that back to the negative 1 of x, the f negative 1 of x, the inverse function. Because that's our last step, right, to change that back. So this would be my solution right here. But let's try this next one. Same thing happening here. Can you already see how you're going to have 2 y's? So when you do that, you're going to have to multiply through. So I'm going to first interchange. I'm going to have x equals 7y over 2y plus 5. Is that ready to cross multiply the way that it is?
No. Yes.
Yeah, I just need to put a 1 underneath the x, right? So this direction, x times 2y plus 5, and the opposite direction, 7y. Everybody agreeing with me? Okay, because I have 2 y's, what am I going to do with that x? Distribute it through, right? Multiply it through. So I get 2xy plus 5x equals 7y. My goal is to get all the y's on one side together. So what do I have to move?
Subtract x, 2xy.
I would do that. Subtract the 2xy to the other side. Could someone turn that off, please? We get 5x equals 7y minus 2xy. Okay. Oh, do what now?
Factor.
Yeah, Danae, you're right. We are going to factor out a y over here because they have a GCF. We're taking it out. We're taking out the y and we're left with 7 minus 2x. Everybody following me on how I got that?
Yeah.
How do I get y by itself then? Divide by 7 minus 2x. Cancels over here. I'm going to come right at mine up here. So I'll have 5x over 7 minus 2x equals y. And the last step is just to change that y back to my f of x. So just rewrite it one more time. -1 of x. Okay? That's how we find the inverse of these rational functions. I would always cross multiply and then decide if you had one variable of y or two so that you know whether or not you need to multiply it through. After you do that, just solve for y, get y by itself. Sometimes you're going to have to factor because factoring never goes